Welcome to Naptime Sports Talk Podcast. We are two dads talking sports during nap times. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode. Welcome back to Naptime Sports Talk Podcast. For episode 13, we'll go over our rankings for the top 10 defensive back prospects and our top 40 draft prospects for the NFL draft. We will then finish up the show with a few special guests today who are lifelong friends of ours. We will be conducting a first-round mock draft together, alternating picks between the four of us. I hope you enjoy the show. So, Zach, just before we dive into our top 10 DBs, this past Sunday, Minnesota sports fans were kind of left with a little disappointment, and that is because the Timberwolves ended up losing, right?
Yep.
So they had their kind of controlled their destiny, and they went out there and just laid flat on the floor versus the Phoenix Suns. And then the New Orleans Pelicans lost their matchup versus the Lakers. So the Suns leapfrogged them in the standings, now are the 6th seed, and the Wolves became the 3 seed.
Yep.
And now we were playing the Suns in round 1, which is an absolute nightmare matchup for the Wolves.
Yeah, it really is. I've been saying it for a while now on these podcasts that the one team that I don't want to play is the Phoenix Suns. And sure enough, like you said, the Timberwolves had, the control of their destiny. They played the Nuggets, last Wednesday. They lost that game. Then they played the Suns on Sunday, and they lost that game by, 24 points or something like that. So, yeah, it's not going to be good. I think that's a terrible matchup for them. Their last game against the Suns, like I said, they got absolutely dominated. He was super ugly. Towns only put up 10 points. Jaden McDaniels only put up 6. Anthony Edwards only put up 13 in 35 minutes. So I don't know what it is with the Suns. The Suns are super deep. I'm really surprised that the Suns are even the 6th seed because, with Durant and Beal and Booker, and then they got Grayson Allen, who just got a huge contract extension yesterday for 70-some mil, but he led the entire NBA in three-point percentage. He almost shot 50% behind the arc this year. So just a terrible matchup for the Minnesota Timberwolves. We'll see what happens. Their first game is going to be this Saturday, April 20th, and the first 2 games will be in Minnesota. So, we gotta protect home court. We got to. If you start the series off 0-2, and then you go to Phoenix, the series is a wrap. So, very, very tough matchup to start the playoffs off, and it's going to be a terrible way for this nice, great, Timberwolves season to end if we're one and done in the playoffs. So overall, definitely bummed out by it.
Yeah, it'd be a huge disappointment. And, it is a new season, NBA playoffs, but just the way we matched up versus them all year, you kind of just would assume that it'd be the same, pretty similar. So hopefully those guys step up. Hopefully Anthony Edwards reaches a new level. Cat, steps up big time. Gobert steps up big time. McDaniels. Just hopefully that starting 5 and those bench players come out there and they have a lot to prove the doubters, or come out to prove the doubters wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully we'll advance to the next round. But yeah, it would be a huge disappointment after all the excitement this year and to be a first round exit. So
yeah, exactly. And the Vegas odds actually still has the Timberwolves, winning that series, which I thought was kind of crazy. But we definitely need, guys like Ant to step up. He's going to have to average probably 30 plus this series. And then going back to Sunday's game against the Suns, they had Anthony Edwards guarding Kevin Durant, and I'm kind of hoping that they, put Jaden McDaniels on him because Jaden McDaniels is the better defender than Anthony Edwards is. So hopefully they'll make that adjustment, and we'll see what they can do. But like I said, it's not over yet. The Timberwolves definitely have the pieces and the defense to potentially beat the Suns, but just overall, just absolute terrible matchup. Such a bummer.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully they come out there Sunday and get that game 1 win.
Yeah, exactly. Well, definitely support the Timberwolves. First game will be this Saturday, April 20th, so definitely tune into that. But just real quick, before we jump into these guys, I want to just talk on the Raiders real quick. The Raiders went out and signed offensive guard Cody Whitehair. He was a former second-round pick by the Chicago Bears. He's played his entire career there, all 8 seasons, and he was actually a Pro Bowler for him. This was a while ago. I think it was 2018 or 2019 he was a Pro Bowler for him. So a nice little get for the Raiders. If I had to guess right now, the way that offensive line is looking, he's probably going to be a starting guard for us. Probably going to be a left guard. We'll probably move Dylan Parham to right guard. And another thing that's nice with this pickup is Luke Getzky is now our offensive coordinator, and he was in Chicago the past 2 seasons. So Cody Whitehair is going to have familiarity in that scheme, kind of helping out, the other offensive linemen getting caught up and up to speed there. So overall, not a bad little signing. It was just a 1-year $4 million, so nothing too crazy, but definitely a position we needed and a player that can definitely start for us. So the Raiders went out there and got Cody Whitehair.
Yeah, solid pickup. So right now, you say he's probably playing guard.
Yep.
Who is Andre James then? Will he be the starting center?
Yep. Andre James, that we extended him. He'll stay there at center, and I would fully anticipate Cody Whitehair playing guard for us.
Yeah, because I know last night, if our listeners weren't able to check it out, go check us out on GG Sports Podcast on YouTube. We joined their show last night, and we did a Vikings and Raiders mock, so you can kind of see what we did. But I remember one of the picks, you had them taking Zach Frazier, center out of West Virginia. So do you think if they went that route, would James still be the starting center, or would they maybe move Zach Frazier to guard potentially?
See, no, that's a really, really good question. The reason why I took Zach Frazier is because our offensive line is definitely our weakest point of our roster. So I just wanted to get more bodies there. Now, Zach Martin, he probably should be playing center at the next level. Andre James can play guard, and it's the other way around too. Zach Frazier can play guard, and Andre James can stay at center. So we'll see what they do, but it just comes down to having more bodies on that offensive line. Right now, our right guard and our right tackle both of those guys. We got Jordan Meredith and Mumford from Ohio State. He's going to be right now. He would be our right tackle, and neither of those guys can start. I mean, they did play a little bit last year, and both of them were actually brutal. So we can't have those guys start. So yeah, the reason why I picked him was just to have more bodies on the offensive line. Then having that kind of versatility where we can, sub guys in and out, especially like if a guy goes down, say if Andre James gets hurt, then you can put Zach at center. So yeah, that's definitely the reason why I went there, and we'll see how that happens. But just a quick little shout out to GG Sports Podcast for having us on. That was a huge opportunity for us. It was a lot of fun. Those guys are super cool, and definitely go check out that episode. It's on YouTube. It's on their YouTube page. And go check out that mock because I think the Vikings fans would be very happy how that turned out. And I think the Raider fans would be really surprised and happy with how that mock turned out too.
No doubt. Yeah, it was a really fun experience. And
it was, yeah.
Later on in this show, we're going to be doing our mock with our 2 special guests too. So keep on listening to find out who those 2 absolute dogs are.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go.
All right, well, moving on to our top 10 DBs. Zach, do you want me to get started? Would you like to get started here?
I'll let you take it away.
All right, how about this? I'll do the first 5, and then you finish up. You do 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 first. Does that sound good?
Perfect. Let's do it.
All right, so my number 1 DB in this class is Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback out of Toledo. Quinyon Mitchell is 6 foot, 196 pounds. He has incredible ball skills, and he also has great recovery speed and coverage. So if he gets beat off the line, he usually catches up. He mostly plays zone coverage, though, so he's usually playing a little further back. He's not like a press guy in coverage. At the Combine, he really showed us that, he has that great recovery speed when he ran that 4.33 40. So in college, he didn't allow too many completions, and he actually forced, I never knew this, but he actually forced the most incompletions over the past 2 seasons than any other cornerback in this class, and even just in college football in general.
Yep.
So in 3 years, he has only given up 870 receiving yards on 184 targets, which is just crazy to me. He has 6 career interceptions, and in 2022, he only allowed a QB passer rating against him of 34.8.
Absolutely insane.
So I think he'll end up being a top 20 pick in the draft, and whoever's getting him is getting an absolute dog.
Yeah, they sure are, and he's my number 1 too. You hit it right on the head. That 4.33 speed is elite. He had a 10-yard split of a 1.51, which is also elite. He's an athletic freak. God, just a guy that he should be the first corner off the board. And what's nice about him is, playing at a smaller school at Toledo, he's got 2 years of very, very good tape. 2 years ago, they tested him a little more, tried him a little more. He had that 4 interceptions in one game, returned 2 of those for a touchdown. And pretty much after that, they said, screw that. We're not even going to throw his way. And then last year, he was a complete shutdown corner, almost like a Darrelle Revis where, they didn't even throw to his side of the field. So he did play at a smaller school, but having that 2 years of elite tape is definitely the reason why he's my number one corner and a guy that should be off the board. Probably, definitely in the top 20, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's a top 15 pick overall.
Yeah, definitely. Well, moving on to my number 2 player. My number 2 player is Terrion Arnold, cornerback out of Alabama. So Terrion Arnold is 6 foot, 196 pounds. Same measurables pretty much as Quinion Mitchell. Arnold has really impressive ball skills as well. And he also has a good recovery speed and coverage too. So I think both these guys, could be 1 or 2 for me. He only had 1 year of starting experience in college. So that's kind of why I put Mitchell at number 1 ahead of him.
Yep.
But the thing is with him, like, he's still developing. He still showed a lot of potential. And last season, he had 5 interceptions at Alabama and allowed a QB passer rating of 50.7 against him. So I think he's going to definitely be a first-round lock as well. And he could potentially be the first cornerback actually taken in this draft.
Yep, I could definitely see that too. He's my number 2. It's definitely, these 2 guys are definitely the top guys. Arnold is more, he ran a 4.51, so not, the quickest 40 out of, a lot of these defensive backs we're going to talk about, but an absolute technician with his technique. I mean, just subpar. I mean, absolutely. If you want to look at film on how to play cornerback, this is the guy you should be watching because his technique is absolutely flawless. He was a 5-star safety recruit coming out of high school, so it's nice that he has that versatility where he can line up at safety, he can line up in the nickel, and he can line up outside. So I think a lot of teams are going to like that, and that's definitely a possibility of him being the number 1 corner taken off the board is because of that versatility. So a guy that I really, really like. Going into this season, a lot of people thought Kool-Aid McKinstry was the number 1 corner in college football. Well, Arnold kind of stole the show and actually outplayed him, and that's why I have Arnold ahead of Kool-Aid. But yeah, big fan of his game, and I think just the way his technique is, I don't see how he could really be a bust. If he doesn't pan on that corner, you can put him at safety, and he could be a Pro Bowl safety at the next level. So a player that I really like and a guy that's going to go very high.
All right, well, moving on to my number 3 player. That is Cooper DeJean out of Iowa. So Cooper DeJean is a cornerback. He's 6'1", 207 pounds. He's a pretty much do-it-all type of player. He's an elite punt returner. He's very smooth cornerback who's a great run defender as well. And he only gave up 194 passing yards in 10 games this past season. So he's absolutely locked down. He had a total of 7 interceptions this past season too at Iowa. And Gopher fans, you might remember him as being the guy who did the blatant fair catch. He took that punt return all the way back to the house.
Yep.
And he got dropped back because he waved his hand. So he's that guy out of Iowa. So just an absolute stud.
Yep. He's my number 4, but number 3 is Tyler Nubin, safety out of the Minnesota Gophers, player that I really, really like. I'm very high on him. He's a top 20 player overall in this entire draft. 6'1", 200 pounds. Ran a 4.6 40, which I thought he was going to run a lot faster than that because, watching his tape and watching his film, he plays a lot faster than that. I think he shows really good explosiveness and closing speed. He's definitely a willing tackler, and I think he's got the best ball skills in this entire draft. He's had 9 interceptions the past 2 seasons. He's got 13 total INTs, which is a Minnesota Gopher record. And what's nice about him is a guy that you can kind of move all over the field. He played a little nickel last year. He was covering tight ends one-on-one. And just a player that can do it all. I think he's been an absolute stud and playmaker at the next level. And from everything that I'm seeing when it comes to all these mock drafts, it seems like he's going to be a day 2 pick. And I think he's going to be an absolute steal for whoever, takes a chance on him.
Yeah, I agree completely. He's actually my number 4 player, so that's perfect.
Nice.
And you literally stole all the words out of my mouth here, Zach. So, yeah, he is the career interception leader for the Gophers, as you stated, with 13 interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a really solid run defender as well, and he's great in pass coverage. So, I really like Nubin a lot. I have to agree with you. We'll see where he's ranked in my top 40, but I think he's going to probably be a late first round or early day 2 pick. If I had to put money on it, I'd probably say day 2, but we'll
Yep.
see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. He's going to be a stud. Number 4 for me is Cooper DeJean. You talked about him a little bit. 6 foot, 203 pounds, around a 4.5 40. He's coming off an injury, so I think he plays faster than that. But this kid was just born to play football. I mean, you watch his film. He's got great ball skills. 7 INTs the last 2 seasons. Didn't allow a touchdown in 2023. Absolute beast when it comes to open field tackling. He's definitely a willing tackler, and a guy that right now he's listed as a corner, but I could totally see him being a safety at the next level, just being able to use that ball skills. Like I said, you could line him up in the box, and he can make the plays at the line of scrimmage, getting those TFLs, and just causing mayhem for offenses. I think he's a fantastic player, and having that versatility, I definitely love. And a guy that's he's going to be a first round pick when it's all said and done.
No doubt. Moving on to my number 5 player. My number 5 player is Nate Wiggins, cornerback out of Clemson. So Nate Wiggins is 6'2", 185 pounds. He's very solid in man and zone coverages. He also has a height and speed, so I think he can add some more weight to his frame because he does have a pretty small frame. And I hope, we'll see how he ends up durability-wise in the NFL. And he actually, one of his kind of weaker areas that he can improve on is the defense, or run defense, and that is because of that smaller frame. But in pass coverage, he is really, really good. In 10 games this past year, he only gave up 176 passing yards. So I think he'll probably be maybe the 4th cornerback taken in this draft, and I think he'll probably go somewhere in the mid to late 20s there in the first round.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. I'm a big Nate Wiggins fan, but I did have Kool-Aid McKinstry ahead of him. Kool-Aid is my number 5, 6 foot, 200 pounds, ran a 4.47 with a broken toe, which is really impressive. He's always been just a dominant football player. 5-star recruit out of high school. As the day one, him stepping foot on campus at Alabama, he was a starter for those guys. I think he's the best bump and run cornerback in this draft. He's got super fluid hips, and the only really knock that I have on him going back and watching his film is he's very handsy. He's handsy at the line of scrimmage, and playing on deep balls and stuff. I think it's going to hurt him a little bit at the next level because he does use those hands pretty deep in the route, and I think that we could definitely see him getting some flags thrown his way. So if he cleans that up, I think he could be an absolute beast at the next level. And another thing that I like about him is the last 2 seasons, he was Alabama's punt returner, so you could definitely use him there at the next level. I don't know if a team would, because I would assume that Kool-Aid is either going to be your cornerback 1 or cornerback 2, and you just don't see many teams putting those guys out there at punt return, but a guy that can definitely do that at the next level.
Yeah, he's actually my number 6 player, so yeah, even though I have him rated 6, he could end up being the best in this class. I mean, he has a 3-year experience at Alabama. In all 3 years, he only gave up 800 passing yards. So I think he's the best. He's definitely the best press man corner in this draft class. So whoever gets him, I think, is going to be getting an absolute steal because he seems like he's a guy that's kind of been sliding in this draft process. And it might have just been because of that, off-season injury that he hasn't been able to do a lot of the workouts or nothing like that. But like you said, he ran that impressive 40 with that fracture in his foot. So yeah, we'll see where he ends up. And man, I could see him going to Philly or maybe Detroit. I think would be a good spot for him in the first round.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said earlier, going into before this last football season, he was by far cornerback 1. I mean, if you go back and you were looking at super early mock drafts, a lot of people had him in the top 10. So a guy that's fallen a little bit, but I definitely think he's going to be a great player at the next level. But my number 6 is Nate Wiggins. You kind of just, talked about him a little bit. I love his athleticism. I think he's the most athletic cornerback in this draft with that 4.28 40. He's 6'1", almost 6'2", 170 pounds. So, him at the line of scrimmage, he is willing to, press you. And it's really hard to, complete deep balls when you got a cornerback that's almost 6'2" and runs a 4.28. He's got just great length. So, completing those passes on him is going to be super tough. But like you said, he definitely needs to add size on that skinny frame that he has. And he's not a willing tackler at all. I think he definitely avoids that. He's barely had 20 tackles, in these past 2 seasons. So he's definitely not a willing tackler. At the next level, that's definitely going to have to change. But if you're just looking for a cornerback, to go against your wide receiver one, I think with that speed and that long frame that he has, I think that he can definitely excel at the next level.
Yeah, you can't be taking business decisions in the NFL, that's for sure. So,
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
well, my number 7 player is Mike Sanistril out of Michigan. So he's 5'10", 182 pounds. He is an absolute leader.
Dog. Oh.
Leader. I bet you. See, I knew you were gonna say that. So, but yeah, he's probably one of the. All you hear about him out of Michigan is just how incredible of a leader he is, and man, he actually ended up playing receiver for 3 years at Michigan before moving to DB. So I think he's the best slot cornerback in this draft. He has incredible ball skills. He had 6 interceptions this past year at Michigan, and I think he's just going to be like a plug and play starter in the slot. He'll probably be a day 2 pick, second round if I had to guess right now.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought him up because he is in my top 10 and a player that I absolutely love. Like day 2, he's going to be a day 2 steal, I think. But my number
sure.
7 is actually Kyrie Jackson from Oregon. I'm just obsessed with his size. 6'4", 195 pounds, ran a 4.50, but he's got a 6'7" wingspan. So an absolute alien out there, guarding a number one receiver. He was actually a JUCO player out of Kansas, and he ended up being the highest ranked JUCO corner. He went to Bama. He didn't play much at Bama, and then this past season, he transferred to Oregon, and he was an absolute dog at Oregon. He's already 24 years old, which is definitely a bummer, but he just dominated. When targeted this year, he allowed a 41.6 QBR. He had 10 pass breakups and 3 INTs, but a guy that is really willing to – he's a great tackler and a guy off the edge that can actually rush the passer, which is nice. He had 10 quarterback pressures and 2 sacks this last year, so I see this guy rising up a lot of boards. I think a lot of people are going to be, super excited about his size and his length that he has. And I would not be surprised at all if he's a round 2 selection. So I got him going, or I have him at number 7, Kyrie Jackson.
Okay, very nice. My number 8 player is Ennis Rakestraw out of Missouri. So Rakestraw is 6 foot, 188 pounds. He's primarily a zone cornerback and would do well on a team who runs zone coverage. So he's definitely a developmental type cornerback who has, I think, some high upside. In college, he only gave up 197 passing yards this past season. And, I just think he's going to probably be a round 2, round 3 player. But Rakestraw, I know a lot of people like him. He's also pretty stout in the run game as well.
Yeah, I like it. He's in my top 10. But my number 8 is TJ Tampa from Iowa State. Now, I've been watching a lot of First Draft with Field Yates and Mel Kiper, and Mel Kiper is so high on TJ Tampa, and I didn't really hear about him until Mel was kind of, talking him up and breaking him up. So I'm like, I'm going to go back and watch his tape, and man, am I impressed. 6'1", 190, he's got great size, ran a 4.45, so he's got plenty of speed. But this guy is a great tackler. I mean, you could argue that he's the best tackling cornerback in this entire draft. He's had almost 70 tackles the past 2 seasons, and a guy that doesn't really excel in man or coverage, he's just very good in both. So I think a guy at the next level that is, no matter what system he goes to, I think he's going to be playing very, very well. I do think that he's going to be a day 2 pick, but whoever gets him, I think he's going to be a fantastic pro. But yeah, Mel Kiper is very, very high on him, and definitely a guy that, if you haven't heard of him, you should go and watch his film because it's very, very good. But yeah, I got TJ Tampa at 8.
Yeah, he's probably be playing a lot of Tampa cover 2 coverage too.
Yeah, makes sense, huh?
Yep, for sure. So my number 9 player is Kamari Lassiter out of Georgia. So Kamari Lassiter is 6 foot, 180 pounds. He has 2 years of starting experience at Georgia. He was targeted 39 times this past season, and he only gave up 15 receptions. So
crazy.
And 136 yards with that total as well. So you hear about this, or you hear about his intelligence for the game, and that made him a lock for my top 10. So I think he'll end up probably being a day 2 guy, maybe second round.
Yeah, I like it. I see a lot of mocks of him going pretty high, so definitely a good pick there. My number 9 is Ennis Rakestraw. You kind of hit on him a little bit. He doesn't have the size. He's 5'11", 180 pounds, ran a 4.5 40. So the measurables really aren't ideal, but if you just go and watch his film, man, this kid can play. He's willing to come up and hit you in the mouth. Like you said, the coverage, him being a zone coverage corner is definitely where he's going to excel at the next level. Just kind of let him sit there and make plays all over the field. And another thing that I really like is he got to go one-on-one with Luther Burden, in all those practices. Luther Burden is going to be a top 10 pick in next year's draft, wide receiver one, more than likely a guy that I really like. So just being able to go against him is definitely, I think excelled his stock in this draft and a reason why he's played as well as he has this past season. So a guy that I really like, definitely a day 2 pick. But yeah, I have him at number 9.
Yeah, iron sharpens iron, right?
Absolutely.
So my number 10 player, you touched on him, is TJ Tampa out of Iowa State. So yeah, it's kind of the same things that you touched on. He has great size for the cornerback position. He's very, he's pretty physical in coverage. And at times he can have a little separation created against him due to his size. But overall, hopefully he can, work on that in the NFL. But like you said, he's really stout in the run game. I think that's one of his better aspects of his game that he excels at run defense. So,
yep.
And he has all that starting experience at Iowa State, which is something that I like as well. So if I had to guess right now, I think he's probably going to go round 3, maybe end of round 2.
Sure.
But I'm just going to predict round 3 right now.
Okay. Yeah. No, I definitely see it. My number 10 is a guy that, you talked about. I think you had him at 7, was Mike Stainstrill from Michigan. He was definitely the leader of that defense. We talked about, that defense being so historic, and I think he was a massive part in that. Another guy where his measurables aren't elite by any means. He's only 5'9", 180 pounds, ran a 4.47, which is plenty fast. Just an absolute playmaker. 4 TFLs, a sack, 6 INTs this past season. And what's nice about him is he kind of lined up all over the defense too. He actually played, he's definitely going to be a nickel cornerback at the next level, but a guy that lined up outside. He played a little safety at Michigan this past year, so definitely a nice chess piece to have. And it's crazy because a lot of people think that this is kind of a weaker cornerback draft. But if you really go back and break down, these guys that are going to be taken in round 2 and round 3, I think these are going to be day 1 starters and absolute studs. So I really like Sainstrill out of Michigan.
Yeah, I would probably disagree with people who say it's a weaker cornerback class, because I think it's pretty deep myself. But,
yep, I totally agree with you.
So, yeah, you're going to get if you get some of these guys in the 2nd round or the 3rd round on day 2, they're probably going to be potential plug and play starters off the get-go. So
yep, I definitely think so.
Well, this will wrap up my top 10. So my number 1 player was Quinion Mitchell. My number 2 player is Terrion Arnold. Number 3, Cooper DeJean. Number 4, Tyler Nubin. He was the only safety in my top 10. Number 5, Nate Wiggins. Number 6, Kool-Aid Man McKinstry. Number 7, Mike Sanistril. Number 8, Ennis Rakestraw. Number 9, Kamari Lassiter. And number 10, TJ Tampa.
Nice. Great top 10. My number 1 is Quinion Mitchell. 2, Terrion Arnold. 3, Tyler Nubin. Same. He's my only safety in my top 10. Cooper DeJean, Kool-Aid McKinstry. Number 6, Nate Wiggins. Number 7, Kyrie Jackson. 8, TJ Tampa. 9, Ennis Rakestraw. And 10, Mike how do you pronounce his last name?
I think it's Sanistril. I could be wrong, though.
Yeah, that looks right. I'll say, number 10, Mike Sanistril out of Michigan.
Yeah, some nice list. So be looking out for these guys in the draft. Draft's going to be coming up here next Thursday, 9 days away.
Can't wait.
Getting really, really excited.
Absolutely, man. It's crazy that it's almost here. So much draft talk the last, handful of months, and we're almost to the finish line, so can't wait.
All that anticipation in the draft, all that lead up, and then just like that is over, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then the long off season begins, because after the draft, there's really not a whole lot to look forward to until preseason.
Yep, for sure. We'll probably be covering a little more baseball on the podcast. We'll still dive into Raiders and Vikings conversations, but just looking forward to the off season and seeing what these guys can do here at rookie minicamp when that happens as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I can't wait to get into our predictions for next season, like team predictions, records, maybe player stats. We'll definitely have a lot of fun this offseason.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, well, moving on to our next topic. That is the top 40 prospects. So Zach and I have both of our top 40 guys, and we're just going to go over the list here together with you all today.
Yeah, let's do it. And another thing is we'll share these lists on our social media so you guys can kind of, take a look at it too. But yeah, go ahead. I'll let you start.
Yeah, so I think you're going to agree with this one. My number one overall player is Caleb Williams, quarterback out of USC.
Yep. Yeah, my number one is definitely Caleb Williams too. I think he's by far the best player in this draft.
For sure. My number two is Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver out of Ohio State University.
Yep. My number two is Marvin Harrison Jr., absolute elite wide receiver talent. Best one we've seen since Julio Jones.
For sure. Number three, I have Malik Neighbors, wide receiver out of LSU.
Nice. I love it. I think after this, we're going to get a little different, but my number three is Malik Neighbors.
Okay. Number four, I have Brock Bowers, tight end out of Georgia.
All right. So this is where it's going to get a little different. My number four is Jaden Daniels. Yeah, I just think he's going to be a fantastic pro. Got him at number four.
My number five player is Joe Alt, offensive tackle out of Notre Dame.
All right. My number five is Rome Odunze. I have three wide receivers in the top five. So I think all three of those receivers are absolute superstars.
Yeah. My number six player is Rome Odunze, wide receiver out of Washington that Zach just mentioned. So I have three wide receivers in the top six of this class.
Nice. My number six, probably a lot higher than most on this player, but I love him. Number six is J.C. Latham out of Alabama.
My number seven player is Jaden Daniels, quarterback out of LSU.
Nice. My number seven is Brock Bowers, tight end, Georgia.
All right. My number eight is Drake May, quarterback out of North Carolina.
All right. 8 for me is Joe Alt.
All right. My number 9 player is Dallas Turner, edge rusher out of Alabama.
Nice. I was really curious where you were going to have Dallas Turner because he's my number one defenseman, and I have him in my top 10, but my number 9 is Talise Fuanga.
He's actually my number 10 player. So Talise Fuanga out of Oregon State.
Nice. My number 10 is Dallas Turner. So I got only one defensive player in my top 10.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah, same here, with Turner at number 9. So
Yep.
My number 11 player is Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo, cornerback.
My number 11, probably higher than most, is Michael Penix Jr. at 11.
My number 12 is J.C. Latham, offensive tackle out of Alabama.
My number 12 is Byron Murphy, defensive tackle, Texas.
I like it. Number 13 for me is Jared Verse, edge defender out of Florida State University.
All right, number 13 for me, Drake May. I have him all the way down at 13, probably going to be a top 3 pick in this draft.
Yeah. Number 14, Terrion Arnold, the cornerback out of Alabama.
Number 14 for me is Brian Thomas Jr. I think in a lot of drafts, he could be potential wide receiver 1, but I do have him as a top 15 player overall.
Number 15 for me is Byron Murphy, the second defensive tackle out of Texas. He would be just an absolute home run pick if the Vikes could find a way to get him on their team.
Yeah, dude, and I'm seeing a lot more mock drafts if they stay put at 11 and 23 that he might be there at 23. So
yeah,
that would be a grand slam. Number 15 for me is Quinion Mitchell, first cornerback that I have at number 15.
All right. Number 16, Olu Fashanu, offensive tackle out of Penn State.
Let's go. He's my number 16 player too. There we go.
Okay. So the first guy we have the same since number 3.
Yeah, yep, I love it.
So number 17 is Cooper DeJean, cornerback out of Iowa.
Nice. My number 17 is A.D. Mitchell, wide receiver out of Texas.
All right. My number 18 is Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver out of LSU.
My number 18 is Terrion Arnold, my second cornerback off the board at 18.
Nice. 19, Laiatu Latu, edge defender out of UCLA.
19 for me is Johnny Newton, a player I think a lot of people are kind of forgetting about. You go back and watch the film, I think he's a top 20 player in this draft. Johnny Newton at 19.
I like it. Number 20, Tyler Nubin, out of safety out of Minnesota.
Love it. So you have Tyler Nubin as a top 20 player too.
I do, yep.
Dude, let's go because he's my number 20. Tyler Nubin he's a top 20 player for me in this entire draft.
All right, I love it. Yeah, I mean, I think he's got, he's clear-cut best safety in this draft, and he might not go first round, but he's going to be an absolute stud at the next level.
Yeah, I love that we both have him in our top 20.
For sure. Number 21 is Jackson Powers Johnson, center out of Oregon.
Nice. 21 for me, Troy Fontenot from Washington.
All right, number 22. Here we go. You ready?
Let's hear it. Oh, boy. Bold?
Michael Penix Jr., quarterback out of Washington. Yeah, I
Okay,
got
all
him at
right.
number 22. So,
Yeah, that's definitely respectable. I think a lot of people kind of have him right around there. So yeah, no argument there. I have him a little higher, but that's still a really good ranking for him. My number two is, or my number 22 is Jared Verse out of Florida State.
all right. So you kind of had him fall down a little bit during this process, maybe.
I did. Now, where did you have him on yours?
I had him at number 13. So I'm a
Okay,
little
yep.
higher on him, but I know
Yeah,
he's like going to be 24 if he's not 24 already. So that age kind of thing. But hey, I think you get defensive players, the age doesn't really kind of throw me off too much unless they're like 28, 29 years old. You're picking them. But
yeah, exactly. And I think Jared Verse is definitely still going to be a great pro. But I think a player that's kind of just fallen a little bit with Murphy moving up. I think Turner's the best one in the draft, best pass rusher in this draft. And then it was just really hard for me to put Jared Verse ahead of Johnny Newton. I'm a
yeah.
huge fan of Johnny Newton. So yeah, I did have Jared Verse all the way down to 22.
All right. Number 23 for me is Johnny Newton, defensive tackle out of Illinois.
23 for me is Jackson Powers Johnson. It seems like a lot of people have, Zach, just different centers. I see a lot of people have Graham Barton kind of, sliding up draft boards. And I think a lot of people are kind of forgetting how dominant Jackson Powers Johnson is. And I think he's the safest player in this draft. I don't see how he can be a bust. So he's my number 23 player.
Number 24 for me is Nate Wiggins, cornerback out of Clemson. We just touched based on him in this earlier in the episode, but yeah, number 24. Like I said, I think you'll be a mid-round or mid-first round cornerback going there in the 20s.
Yeah, my number 24 is Latu, however you pronounce that name. That's a tough one. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a top 15 player overall, but I have him listed at 24 on my list.
All right. Number 25 is Troy Fontanu, offensive tackle / guard out of Washington. So he's definitely a guy who could potentially play offensive tackle or he could play offensive guard. So he has that versatility in both positions.
Yep. My number 25 is Cooper DeJean.
All right. My number 26, Xavier Worthy, wide receiver out of Texas.
Nice. My number 26 is Chop Robinson. Have him a little higher than probably most. I love that athleticism. I love that first step. If a team's patient with him, I think he can definitely be a Pro Bowl type of player. So I have him at 26.
All right. Number 27 for me is Kool-Aid Man McKinstry, out of a cornerback out of Alabama.
27 for me is the guy that you had at 26, Xavier Worthy, wide receiver, Texas.
Number 28 for me is A.D. Mitchell, a wide receiver of Texas. So definitely a guy who, I think he could potentially be higher than this, but I just, that consistency there, he just had his best season. He has the tools. He's still developing as a wide receiver. But, man, I think he's going to be a potential steal if he goes somewhere like the Bills or the Chiefs, potentially at number 32 there as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Number 28 for me is the Kool-Aid Man McKinstry.
I like it. We're adopting that Kool-Aid Man nickname for him right now. So
Definitely. I dig it.
Number 29, Amarius Mims, offensive tackle to Georgia.
Nice. He's my number 30, but my number 29 is Troy Franklin, a guy that's probably rised up more than anyone in this entire draft. For me on my rankings, he really wasn't even on my radar. And now that, we're 9 days out, he's number 29. Big fan of Troy Franklin. I think he's going to be a stud at the next level.
All right, my number 30 player is Chop Robinson, edge defender out of Penn State. Where did you have Chop again?
I had Chop at 26.
Okay, that's right.
So just a little higher than you. Yeah, I think that's definitely respectable having Chop Robinson there at 30.
Yeah, for sure. I think he'll be like we said, he's pretty raw. Can use some more development, but man, he has all the athleticism in the world to be a really good edge defender. He needs just to kind of be more consistent to put it all together.
Yep. Hopefully, he goes to a team that will be patient with him, and a team that's picking towards the end of the first round, so he doesn't have to have too much pressure on him as a rookie, because he definitely needs to develop. There's no doubt about it. My number 30 is Amarius Mims.
All right. Okay, here we go. My 31st overall player is Ladd McConkey, wide receiver out of Georgia.
Nice. All right. Ladd's not too far on my list. My 31 is Nate Wiggins.
All right. Number 32 for me is Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle at Oklahoma. So converted tight end that could use some more development at offensive tackle, but man, he has the size to be an absolute stud at the tackle position here in the NFL.
Yep. My number 32 is Ladd McConkey, a guy that you had at 31, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a better pro than he was a college football player, so I got him at 32.
Man, if he ends up on the Chiefs,
I would hate that. I would hate that.
A fantasy football guy to get next year if Ladd McConkey ends up on the Kansas City Chiefs, that is for sure.
Yeah, I could definitely see him catching 80-plus balls as a rookie in that offense.
No doubt. Number 33 for me is Troy Franklin, wide receiver out of Oregon.
There we go. Nice. Troy Franklin in the top 40. I dig it. 33 for me is actually Graham Barton out of Duke. He played left tackle. He can play guard. I like the versatility. You know, a lot of people have him, you know, I've seen him in even the top 20, so he's definitely a guy that's rising in this draft, but I had him at 33.
So here we are. We're sitting at number 33, and only 4 quarterbacks have been listed so far. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Michael Penix Jr.
Yep.
My number 34 player is J.J. McCarthy, quarterback out of Michigan. So I have him rated 34. I don't think he's going to be a second-round player. He's going to go in first round. But his play-wise, to me, he needs to become more consistent over time. His tape shows second-round pick to me, too. I think teams, you know, if you're going based off of his potential, off of some of the tools that he has, definitely a first-round talent. But if we're talking about tape, you know, for me, he's a second-round pick. So definitely going to be going round 1, and hey, he could potentially be the future quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings too.
Yep, and this was the guy I was most excited about when we announced that we were going to do our top 40 on a podcast, because I was really, really curious to know how high that you would have J.J. McCarthy. And J.J. McCarthy is in my top 40, but my 34 player is Keon Coleman. I think he's going to be an absolute beast right away as a rookie. You could argue that he's going to be he's probably the best red zone target in this entire draft at wide receiver. So a guy that's probably going to catch a lot of touchdown passes as a rookie.
No doubt. My 35th player, you just touched on him, is Graham Barton, offensive tackle to Duke.
Nice. 35 for me, the only linebacker I have in my top 40, and that's Edgerrin Cooper out of Texas A&M.
All right. And my only linebacker is coming up here pretty soon, so we'll see who it is. But
all right,
if you listen to a previous episode, you'd probably know who my number 1 linebacker is.
Yeah, no doubt.
Number 36, Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver out of Florida, is my number 36 player.
Nice. I gotta see that he was a tough one for me. He didn't make my top 40, but a guy that I really thought about putting in there because, God dang it, I like him as a player.
For sure.
My 36, here it is, J.J. McCarthy, quarterback, Michigan. I had him at 36, you know, just a little bit further down than you did, but not by much. So, yeah, I think he's a second-round type of talent. He's going to be a top 10 quarterback when it's all said and done, I think, if I had to predict. So a team's going to reach on him a little bit, but, you know, hopefully he goes to a team where he can sit and learn, but I did have him at 36.
I have seen some mocks lately, Zach, that the Raiders move up to get him like at pick 8, pick 9. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'd probably puke in my mouth if I saw that. I would not be. I'm just not a J.J. McCarthy guy. Like, if we stayed put at 13 and took him at 13, am I going to be excited? Probably not. But, I mean, you get a franchise quarterback. We have Minshew. He can sit and learn. He does have, you know, some nice traits, some nice tools, but he's definitely a big-time project. So, hopefully, if we did take him at 13, if we traded up for him, I wouldn't like it at all. If we took him at 13, it is what it is. Just hopefully, you know, he would sit a full season at least.
Now there's talks about him potentially going number 3 to the Patriots, and he just finished up a 2-day visit there yesterday.
Dude, that would be best case scenario. If he somehow, you know, a team just loves him, like just say the Commanders at 2 or the Patriots at 3, if that could somehow happen, dude, it's absolutely huge for the Vikings, and it's huge for the Raiders because, you know, Drake May is going to fall, and maybe if the Commanders take May at 2, then maybe a guy like Jaden Daniels can fall. Dude, that's one thing. Talking about the Timberwolves, just real quick, this is off topic. Jaden Daniels and Jaden McDaniels on the Timberwolves, right? Man, is that tough. That is a tough one. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully J.J. McCarthy actually goes 2 or 3, man. I would be fist pumping if that actually happened.
I can't wait. We'll know here soon. So
heck yeah.
My number 37 player is Peyton Wilson, linebacker out of North Carolina State.
Nice. My number 37 is Zach Frazier out of West Virginia, a guy I took in the second round in our mock we did with GG Sports podcast yesterday. So a guy that I like and got him at 37.
My number 38 player is actually Zach Frazier.
Heck yeah. My 38 is Kyrie Jackson. I just like his size, 6'4" cornerback, so I had to put him there in my top 40.
All right, so this next one might be a surprise for everyone, but I think this guy, no matter where he's taken, I don't think he's going to go day 2. But for me, he's in my top 40, and that's Jalen Wright, running back out of Tennessee.
Wow, dude, I love the boldness, man. I absolutely love it. Yeah, you kind of put me on Jalen Wright, and the more you watch him, he had that 7.4 average this past season, man. A guy that I'm really falling in love with, and you having him in your top 40, there's absolutely no argument out of me because I think he's probably going to be a better pro than he was college football player, and that's kind of scary having that speed and that 7.4 average that he had.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm excited to see where he ends up and what he can do in the pros.
Yeah, hopefully a Viking or Raider. I mean, both of us definitely need that, that RB2. So we'll see what happens there. But my number 39 player is Brandon Fiske from Florida State, a defensive tackle, a guy that's really, since the season ended, he's really helped his cause going to the Senior Bowl, dominating, and a guy I had to put in my top 40, and I put him there at 39.
Yeah, he was someone that I kind of hemmed and hawed about in my top 40. He would definitely be in my top 50 if we did a top 50.
Yep.
But my number 40 player is Keon Coleman, wide receiver out of Florida State. So, I think he's going to be a super solid player in the NFL. He could potentially be drafted in round 1, too, just depending on what team might fall in love with him. And yeah, I think he's got all the skills in the world to be a big-time player, especially in the red zone.
Yeah, no doubt. I had him at 34, so we weren't too far off there. My number 40 is Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma.
So yeah, that wraps up our top 40. So be looking for these players to go in the first round, and we'll have to go back and recap our top 40 versus what actually happens too. Just saying that, these are our top 40 players doesn't mean that they're going to be all the top 40 guys picked in the draft.
Yep.
But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no doubt. I thought both of our lists, a lot of guys we're pretty similar. We just were off by, maybe 4, 5, 6 picks. So definitely guys that we really like. So we'll definitely, like I said, we'll put these top 40 players on our social media so you guys can kind of go over them. But yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think this is a perfect time to start moving into our last part of our episode, and that is we're going to have a couple of special guests on now. So they're going to be joining us here to do a first round mock draft. So everybody welcome a couple absolute dogs, DC, aka Big D, and Kevin, aka KG. Welcome, guys. How are we doing today?
How about you? Pretty good yourself?
We're doing good. So yeah, let's just get started here. So before we get started with the mock draft, Kevin and Big D, I want to hear who you want the Vikes to take as their next quarterback.
Drake May from North Carolina. Michael Penix Jr. from Washington.
Nice.
I'd be happy with either one of those guys. So let's just get started with our mock draft. So I'm picking number 1 here for the Chicago Bears. So with the first pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears are selecting Caleb Williams out of USC. The number 1 prospect in this class for me, I think they're going to get their franchise quarterback there in Chicago. And, man, it's going to be some interesting times in the NFC North moving forward.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He's definitely going number 1. I think the draft here actually starts with the second overall pick.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. So, Kevin, you're on the clock at number 2 for the Washington Commanders.
Jane Daniels, quarterback, LSU.
Very nice pick. I think he'll fit perfectly in that Cliff Kingsbury offense and makes that NFC East a whole lot better. So, moving on to number 3 overall pick, the New England Patriots are on the clock.
So, yeah, I got the pleasure of picking for the New England Patriots. I do, in this mock draft, we are not doing trade downs. I think this would be a big-time trade position for a lot of teams like the Minnesota Vikings and the Raiders. But I'm going to stay put here and take quarterback Drake May out of North Carolina.
Yeah, nice pick. There's a guy that Kevin and I both want the Vikes to move up to get at number 3. So I'll be a little bummed out about that, but maybe the price tag is just too high to get up there. So we'll see what happens when the NFL draft comes up here real quick. But moving on to number 4, the Arizona Cardinals are on the clock. So, Dan, what are you doing for the Arizona Cardinals?
Well, Kyler Murray needs some weapons on the offense side of the ball, and he does need his number 1 receiver. So I'm going to pick Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver from Ohio State.
Yep, absolute home run pick there, DC. I'll do the same exact thing. My number 2 overall player in this class, just one of the best wide receivers I've seen coming into the draft in a very long time.
Yeah, I think he's the best prospect since Julio Jones. Like I said, if I'm the Arizona Cardinals, I am not trading back. I'm staying here at 4 and taking Marvin Harrison Jr. So great pick there, DC.
Moving on to the number 5 overall pick, so the Los Angeles Chargers on the clock. And, the wide receiver room there in LA is looking a little depleted. So I think they're going to sit there and they're going to take just an incredible prospect, and that is Malik Neighbors, wide receiver at LSU. I think he can stay off the videos of him dancing in his closet, though. That can just stop. But, man, they're getting an absolute great football player there in LA.
Yeah, dude, for sure. And Justin Herbert, he needs his wide receiver 1. Malik Neighbors is definitely that. Elite prospect, wide receiver 1 in most drafts, getting him at 5. Absolute home run pick there for the Chargers.
So moving on to number 6 pick, the New York Giants are on the clock.
For the New York Giants, Riley stole my pick. I was going to pick for the Giants, so we're going to go with Joe Alt, tackle, Notre Dame.
Very nice pick. My number 1 offensive tackle player in this class. Just an incredible prospect. Minnesota boy, too, so that's pretty cool. His dad is a Hall of Fame offensive tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. And yeah, just, if the Tennessee Titans fans, I know they would be pretty bummed out because I bet they're hoping that he lands there at number 7. But the Giants just took him. So very nice pick, Kevin.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm picking for the Tennessee Titans here. I'm very, very upset that Joe Alt just got taken. So I'm going to go plan B here. I'm going to take wide receiver Rome Odunze from Washington. Yes, they did give Calvin Ridley that big contract, almost $100 million. They do have DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins is getting a little bit older, so I'm going to go ahead and take Rome Odunze with the 7th overall pick and give Will Levis another weapon.
Nice pick. Number 8, the Atlanta Falcons are on the clock. DC, you are on the clock.
Well, a lot of people know Atlanta is actually my second favorite team. So I was a big Matt Ryan fan. Because he did play at Boston College. But Atlanta did get their franchise quarterback with Kirk Cousins when he signed that big, huge deal for 4 years for like $182 million. But they need help on the defense side of the ball. So I'm going to draft Dallas Turner from Alabama.
Yeah, so Dallas Turner is just an incredible pick there. So edge defender there out of Alabama. One of the most athletic edge defenders in this class. Very, very nice pick there, DC, for the Atlanta Falcons. So moving on to number 9, the Chicago Bears are back on the clock. And, Chicago, I think that maybe they'd want another wide receiver. Keenan Allen is a guy that they added this offseason. And, I'm going to sit there. I'm going to build the trenches, add another player next to Montez Sweat. And they're going to take in Johnny Newton, defensive tackle out of Illinois.
Nice. That's a great, great pick. I could totally see that fit. He could play right next there to Montez Sweat. I think that's a fantastic pick. Johnny Newton is my 19th overall player. So honestly, that's really not that far of a stretch. So I definitely like that pick there for the Chicago Bears.
With the number 10th pick, the New York Jets select Talise Fuaga, tackle, Oregon State.
Very nice pick, Kevin. He's my second rated offensive tackle in this class. And I think, giving Aaron Rodgers another protector there, he could be a right tackle. You could slide him into guard too, but I think he's going to be a plug-and-play starter there at right tackle next year for the New York Jets.
Yeah, great pick there for the New York Jets. Moving on to pick number 11, the Minnesota Vikings are on the clock. Both J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix are both still sitting here. I do have J.J. McCarthy pretty low on my top 40 players. I think he was number 36. And my number 11 overall player was Michael Penix Jr., and it just works out perfectly because the Vikings are picking there at 11. So with the 11th overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings will be selecting quarterback Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington.
Love it. I would be incredibly happy with that pick if we're able to keep number 11 and number 23 and just take Michael Penix Jr. there. As you said, I have him rated higher than J.J. McCarthy. Penix Jr. is my 4th rated quarterback. McCarthy's actually my 5th rated quarterback, and I think Michael Penix is ready to play right now. And, you don't even have to play him if you don't want him to start off because you have Sam Darnold there too. So
Absolutely.
Big D and Kevin, how are you feeling about that pick at number 11?
I like it a lot. I really do.
I like it a lot too.
It's gonna give JJ. It's gonna give JJ some targets.
No doubt, no doubt. So with the 12th overall pick, the Denver Broncos are on the clock.
So Russell Wilson did go to the Pittsburgh Steelers, so Denver does need a quarterback. So I'm gonna pick JJ McCartney, quarterback from Michigan.
Yeah, very nice pick there for Denver. I think he just kind of looks like a Bronco too.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The Broncos would be super, super happy if this actually happened where JJ fell to pick 12. I do think that they would be looking to trade up with maybe the Atlanta Falcons or the Chicago Bears there at pick 8 or pick 9 to kind of jump Minnesota to lock up JJ McCarthy. So the fact that he fell to pick 12 right in their lap, I think Sean Payton and the rest of the Denver Broncos would be very, very happy with this pick.
Well, moving on to the number 13 overall pick, and I have the pleasure for picking for the Las Vegas Raiders. So,
come on, don't mess it up.
I think the Raiders, you could look at their team. It's just they could use some offensive tackle help. And I'm going to be taking, I know, Zach's favorite offensive tackle in this draft class, and that's J.C. Latham, offensive tackle of Alabama. Just an absolute mauler, one of the most physical offensive tackles in this class.
Yeah, grand slam pick. Raider Nation standing up, giving you a round of applause. Definitely our biggest need is that right tackle position. I got J.C. Latham as my 6th overall player in this entire draft. So him falling to 13, to me, is an absolute steal. So I absolutely love it. And in my opinion, we got Colton Miller there at left tackle. We're going to have J.C. Latham there at right tackle. So in my opinion, I think we got the best tackle tandem in the NFL. I love it.
All right, moving on to the 14th pick. The New Orleans Saints are on the clock. Just a team that I know us Vikings fans, I know it's Dan and Kevin feel the same way. We just despise the Saints based on the bounty gate back in, the Favre year. So just ever since then, I just have not been very fond of the New Orleans Saints here, Kevin. So I hope you come out and pick them an absolute bust.
Can I draft? Is it too early to draft a kicker?
It's never too early to draft a kicker. That's for sure. Make it history there in round 1. I don't think there's ever been a kicker in round 1.
Janikowski.
Janikowski
Really? By the Raiders.
Okay.
He was a first round pick. Yep.
Well, you just taught
the only
me
one.
something. Okay. What pick was he?
Yep.
Do you know?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I think he was 20 something, but yeah, he was a first round pick.
That is unbelievable.
Back to the program. We're going to draft Chop Robinson, edge, Penn State.
Very nice pick. I know Zach is really high on Chop Robinson. We both think that can develop a little more. He's a pretty raw prospect, but yeah, he definitely has the athleticism to be a top edge defender in this class if he can put it all together.
Yeah, and that's a position that the Saints really need. 5 years from now, I could definitely see Chop Robinson end up being the best pass rusher out of this draft. So kind of a boomer bust prospect for sure, but a nice gamble there for the Saints at 14. But moving on to pick number 15, we got the Indianapolis Colts on the clock. I still think their biggest need is a cornerback. They did sign Kenny Moore, but he's strictly a nickel corner, so that number 1 corner outside, they know they're going to have their pick here because there's been no corners taken. So I'm going to go on and take Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback from Toledo. I think he's the best cornerback in this draft. I think he's going to fit in really well there. He can, move all. I think at the next level he'll end up, locking down the number 1, probably following that wide receiver 1 on the opposite team. So I think getting him there at 15 is great value for the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, I know Indianapolis fans would be really happy with that pick. I'm really high on Quinyon Mitchell. He's one of my top 15 overall players in this class. So getting him there at 15 is really nice value too. So yeah.
No doubt.
Moving on to the 16th pick, the Seattle Seahawks are on the clock.
So I know Seattle lost a couple secondary players in the free agency this year, so they need a corner, like a shutdown corner. So I'm going to draft Cooper DeJean, corner from Iowa.
Very nice pick. Just an absolute solid corner there. Didn't allow a touchdown at all in coverage last year. And he's a very stout cornerback as well there. So that would be a really nice pick for the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, and another thing about the Seattle Seahawks is they cut both Diggs, their safety, and Jamal Adams. So, and I did say earlier in this podcast that Cooper DeJean could be playing safety at the next level, so I definitely see the fit there. Good pick, DC.
Did he have that miracle play when he run against Minnesota when that got called back or something like that?
Yeah, he was the guy that he did the fair catch or the signal, and he ran it back all the way to the house. They went back to review it, and yeah, he waved his arm in the air, so it came back, and it kind of ultimately lost Iowa the game there versus Minnesota.
Oh,
yep.
What a bummer.
But yeah, he's a very skilled punt returner too. So just a do-it-all kind of player, he'd make a huge difference in punt return there for the Seattle Seahawks as well. So, well, moving on to the 17th pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars on the clock, and they could maybe add to the offensive line at this position. They could use maybe some interior offensive linemen. They could use potentially some more offensive tackles. But I think you just get Trevor Lawrence, another weapon there at wide receiver, and I'm going to be taking Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU. So a guy that Zach actually has compared to Randy Moss, and you go back and watch his tape, and he flies down the field. He's got the speed, he's got the deep ball ability, and he's not just a deep ball threat too, because he can go in on slants. He's kind of a do-it-all type guy. And hey, two wide receivers in this draft out of LSU, and he could be up there just with Malik Neighbors too. So he had a tremendous year there at LSU this past season.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his. Obviously, they lost Kelvin Ridley, so they definitely need that wide receiver one. He had 17 touchdowns this past season, so a guy that's going to plug in, be obviously a day one starter, and a guy that could potentially win Rookie of the Year. So a great pick there for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Well, moving on to the 18th pick, and we have the Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock. And Kevin, I'm really excited to see what you do here, because there's a guy that I think the Cincinnati Bengals could just ultimately need, and we'll see what you have to pick for them.
And if I'm thinking what you're thinking, he's my favorite player in the draft, Brock Bowers, tight end from the University of Georgia.
Man, an absolute just A+++. Like you said, he's a generational type tight end. Probably one of the best tight ends we've seen in a very, very long time.
Completely agree.
He can do it all. He can run block. You go watch his tape, man. You get him the ball, and he's got some nice speed for being that size as well. So
definitely.
Just give Joe Burrow another weapon there.
Definitely.
Yeah, that pick makes a ton of sense. Brock Bowers is my 7th overall player, so getting a guy like that at 18, Cincinnati, that's a home run pick for the Bengals. Great pick by Kevin. Let's go. But let's see here. Moving on to pick number 19. I'm back on the clock with the Los Angeles Rams. They just lost Aaron Donald, first ballot Hall of Famer, so they got a glaring hole there in the middle of that defense. So I'm going to go ahead and take Byron Murphy, the second from Texas, defensive tackle. I just think he's going to be a plug-and-play guy, definitely a 3-down player at the next level, elite against, elite stopping the run, but also a great pass rusher too. So a guy that they're just going to be able to plug in and play, and I think he's going to be a big-time playmaker for him as a rookie.
Yeah, and being the Vikes here sitting at 23, and if Byron Murphy was still sitting there, this is a guy I'd hope maybe they could move up to go get. But we didn't. We know there's no trades in this mock, so we lost out on him. He's one of my favorite prospects at defensive tackle in this class. And the Rams are getting a really solid player there for the interior of their defense. So I would definitely be a little bummed out draft night if he ended up getting that close to us and we just missed out on him. So
yeah, no doubt.
Well, moving on to the number 20th pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers are on the clock. So DC, you are on the clock.
Well, Pittsburgh doesn't need quarterbacks because they just got Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. But they need someone on the defensive side, and I love my Bama boys, so I'm going to go Terran Arnold, cornerback from Alabama.
Very nice pick. Yeah, Terran Arnold's actually my number 2 overall defensive back in this class. I think he's he can use some more probably development. He's only started 1 full year at Alabama, but man, he's just not even touching the surface, I think. So that'd be an absolute nice pick there for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, for sure. And they drafted Joey Porter Jr. with the second, in their second round last year. He really showed out in his rookie season. Great young player. So getting a guy opposite of him in Arnold, I mean, that's a really nice young tandem there in Pittsburgh. Great pick.
Moving on to the 21st pick in the NFL draft, the Miami Dolphins are on the clock. So I think Miami could just keep on building the trenches there for Tua. They lost a couple guys here in free agency. And they're going to be taking a guy here out of Washington, Troy Fontanu. He's an offensive tackle, but he also could play guard. So he has that versatility. You can either play him at tackle position, you can play him at guard. And guys, if you watch a lot of Washington football, he's at the offensive tackle that always has his crop top with his gut hanging out.
Yeah, yep. He definitely is. And, like you just said, they lost Robert Hunt there in free agency. So now, you get Troy, plug him in at guard, and there you go. You're not going to miss a beat.
Well, moving on to the 22nd pick, the Philadelphia Eagles are on the clock.
And with the 22nd pick, they're going to draft the player who I think has the coolest first name, Mr. Kool-Aid McKinstry, defensive back, Alabama.
Kool-Aid man, let's go. Very nice pick.
Nice. Very nice pick, yep.
Actually, earlier in this episode, we talked about our top 10 defensive backs, and I talked about Philadelphia being a team that I could see Kool-Aid landing. So he just kind of has that Philly attitude, I think, and he fit perfectly right there in that city.
Yep, he's the best bump and run corner in this draft, and that's what they like to do there in Philly. So, yeah, I think that's a fantastic fit. Moving on to pick number 23, where the Minnesota Vikings are back on the clock. And unfortunately, the board hasn't really fallen, the way they wanted to. They did get Michael Penix there at pick 11, but a guy that they really want is probably Byron Murphy, that defensive tackle. He's off the board. Unfortunately, Johnny Newton is off the board. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stay on the defensive side of the ball. I'm actually kind of surprised that this player is still on the board. I'm going to go ahead and take defensive end Jared Verse out of Florida State. I think he's going to be a day one starter for them. The Vikings did go out and sign Van Ginkel and Greenyard from the Houston Texans. But getting a nice, big-time power rusher, he's the best power rusher in this draft. I think that would be a very nice spot and one heck of a pick for the Minnesota Vikings there at 23.
Yeah, absolute home run there. I have him. He's my 13th overall player in this draft class. I'm really high on Jared Verse. And just him being here at 23 is just crazy to me. So if we got him, I would be super excited. And, you can never use too many pass rushers. So another thing is you could put him down in third downs, put him in the middle of the defense too, and have him rush up the middle as well. So that's a guy that I really like there at number 23. Nice job.
Thank you.
Well, moving on to the 24th pick, the Dallas Cowboys are on the clock. Big D, the man, you sleeping yet? You're on the clock.
No, I'm awake.
All right.
So Dallas doesn't need no help on the defense side of the ball because there are Dak. And Dak Prescott needs help on the offensive line because he just lost one of his top tackles. So I am going to draft. I can't say his name. So, Ryan, I'm going to have you say his name from Penn State.
Yeah, so this is a heck of a name, DC, so I get it. But I'm going to shorten that first name up to Olu, and the last name is Fashanu. So offensive tackle to Penn State. Just a very nice player. He was measured in at the combine with 8.5-inch hands, so that could be a guy that could potentially fall. Last year, if he would have came out of this draft class, he probably would have been a top 10 pick. Now he's kind of fallen out into the 20 range, which is pretty crazy to me. But he's one of the best pass protectors in this class. So, yeah, that would be a very nice need and a very nice get for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, if he actually fell to 24, I could definitely see them pulling the trigger on Fashanu. They have Tyler Smith. He was a guard. They drafted him as a guard. Kicked him out to left tackle after Tyron Smith got hurt. Actually, probably plan on starting Tyler Smith at left tackle. But now if you get a guy like Alou at pick 24, you can slide Tyler Smith back at that left guard spot. Alou can be your left tackle. And there you go, Dallas Cowboys. Your line's good to go.
No doubt. Well, number 25, the Green Bay Packers are on the clock. Let's hear it, boys. Let's hear it for them Packers.
Boom.
Boo. Boo. All right, so all joking aside, though, the Packers are on the clock at number 25. They're going to be sitting there and taking offensive tackle Amarius Mims out of Georgia. So just an absolute mammoth of a human, 6'8", 350 plus. Man, he's going to be a very tough guy to get around at that tackle position there. He'd be a really nice pick there for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. If you told me 5 years from now he's the best offensive tackle in this entire class, I would not be shocked one bit. Their left tackle right now is Rasheed Walker. I don't think he's a long-term left tackle there. So getting a guy like Mims, slide him at left tackle, and there you go.
All right. Well, number 26, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are on the clock.
Latu edge, UCLA.
All right. Yeah, very nice pick there. Latu out of UCLA. He actually had to medically retire there for a couple seasons. He originally played at Washington. They didn't clear him to play again, so they were kind of forced for him to retire. And then he actually transferred to UCLA, and that's where he played the last 2 seasons. One of the best edge rushers in this class. I think he won was it the Lombardi, Zach, this past season?
I don't remember what they call it, but he won the award for the best defensive end in college football. I'd have to look it up. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, he did win that award. Yep. Yeah, and another thing about him, just real quick, is I wouldn't be surprised one bit if he ends up being a top 10 pick. I know it's a little bold, but I could see him being the pick there at 9. He's the most polished pass rusher in this draft. Just having a guy like this fall to 26, I mean, talk about an absolute steal there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So great pick. But just moving on, we're on pick number 27. The Arizona Cardinals are back on the clock. Now the board has kind of fallen, I think, in favor for the Arizona Cardinals here. They did get Marvin Harrison Jr. They're at pick 4. But you know what? I'm going to give Kyler Murray another weapon here, and I'm going to take Xavier Worthy, wide receiver out of Texas, a guy that can just stretch the field. You can't leave him one-on-one on the outside. And if you got a guy like Xavier Worthy opposite of Marvin Harrison, I mean, talk about, the chances that Marvin Harrison is going to have, because you can't double team both of them. You're going to have to pick your, you're going to have to pick your poison there. And that's going to be deadly for the Arizona Cardinals. So I'm going to go 2 receivers there in the first round. Xavier Worthy is going to be pick number 27 for the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, absolutely. And very nice pick. And, the fastest 40 ever at the combine. Just an absolute burner. So he's not just a deep ball threat either. You can watch him. He's a very good punt returner and kick returner too. So
absolutely.
Moving on to the 28th pick, the Buffalo Bills are on the clock.
Buffalo did lose. They do need a wide receiver because they just lost Stephon Diggs to the Houston Texans. But I think Josh Allen needs help up front. I'm gonna go Graham Barton. A tackle from Duke.
Yeah, very nice pick, Dan. And Barton's definitely a guy who's kind of been rising up during this draft process. Very athletic offensive tackle out of Duke there, so that'd be a really nice pick.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense there in Buffalo. This wide receiver class is very, very deep, so they could definitely get their wide receiver, there in the second round. And I got Graham Barton as my 33rd overall player in this draft. The Bills here are picking at 28, so it's not that far-fetched. And a guy that can play left tackle and guard at the next level. So I think that's a very solid pick there, DC.
Moving on to the 29th pick, the Detroit Lions are on the clock. Let's hear it, guys. Let's hear it from the Lions.
Boo.
All right, so we are going to be looking to build them trenches, keep adding to their offensive line. I think championship teams start there in the trenches. And the Lions are pretty close. As much as we despise the Lions, they're pretty close there, potentially competing for a Super Bowl championship. And they'll be taking a player that I'm really high on. He's my 21st overall player, and that is Jackson Powers Johnson. He's a center at Oregon, so just a powerhouse center. He handles himself very well versus big, overpowering defensive tackles, and it's kind of shown there in his tape, and you can also see that down at the Senior Bowl too. So definitely a riser since the Senior Bowl process, and I think he's going to be an absolute stud here in NFL.
Yeah, I do too. It'd be a lot of fun seeing Gibbs run behind him. I said earlier in this podcast, I think he's the safest player in this entire draft. So a great pick there for the Detroit Lions. Definitely a first-round talent for sure.
With the 30th pick, the Baltimore Ravens are on the clock.
The Baltimore Ravens are going to select Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver, Texas, get Lamar Jackson another weapon to throw the ball to.
Very nice pick. Very nice pick. A.D. Mitchell is definitely, he's in my mid-20s of my rankings. So, yeah, I think that would be a very solid player. Actually, he's number 28 for me. So, really good value there for the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, the way that this board has fallen so far, he's the best value pick in this entire first round so far. I have A.D. Mitchell as my 17th best overall player, and the Ravens are getting him there at 30. So, absolute great pick. Another weapon for Lamar Jackson. I definitely dig it. But moving on here, we are on to pick 31. The San Francisco 49ers are on the clock. I do think that their biggest need, they really don't need much, obviously, but I think their biggest need is to get another corner. They have a corner opposite of Travarius Ward, and that's Aubrey Thompson. I don't think Aubrey Thompson is good enough to be a starter at the next level, definitely a rotational player. So I'm going to go ahead and take cornerback Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. I just like his athleticism. I do think that he deserves to be a first-round talent, and I think that, he could plug and play. He's not going to get beat on deep balls with that 4.28 speed and that long, him being 6'2" with long arms. So I like Nate Wiggins a lot, and I think he'd be a great fit there for the San Francisco 49ers.
All right, moving on to the last pick of the draft. So Big D has the pleasure of picking for Zach's Despised team, the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's hear it for the Chiefs.
Draft him a bust, DC. Come on.
I'll let him down, DC. What do you got? You taking a punter?
No. So I think Patrick Mahomes needs another weapon on the offense side because he does have Tyreek Hill, but I think he needs that wide receiver too. And I think this is going to be the steal of the draft.
Hollywood Brown.
And I'm going to go Ricky Parcell, wide receiver from Florida.
Very nice pick, DC. I love Ricky Pearsall out of Florida. He's in my top 10 for my receivers. And yeah, he could be, I think he's going to be an absolute steal here in this draft. And, we don't know what's going on with Rashee Rice here. I think he just turned himself into the police from understanding. So who knows if he'll be. Yep. Who knows if he'll be playing next year? And actually, I saw that he's being sued for $1 million in damages based on that car accident. So yeah, he's in some hot water. So they definitely need a wider.
He'll be roommates with the Henry Ruggs pretty soon.
Yeah, he's in. Yeah, he's definitely, Rashee Rice is definitely in deep trouble. I don't anticipate him being there week one. I think his suspension will be, that's something that he's going to have to deal with. But man, DC, I wanted you to pick a bust. Ricky Pearsall, that's a great pick there for the Kansas City Chiefs. He had 65 catches last year and almost 1,000 yards. And he could definitely be a sleeper if he went to Kansas City for Rookie of the Year. So a good pick, DC.
But you don't want Kansas City to go back to back Super Bowl champs or what?
No, I want him to win about 0 games next year.
DC, if Kansas City does win the Super Bowl next year, you got to get a KC tat on your calf.
I bet.
All right, we're here. You heard it here first on the podcast.
And you got to go streaking down Grand Avenue.
Hey.
Oh God,
I might do that too.
Big deal. You'll be with Rashee Rice and Henry Ruggs in no time.
We'll bail you out, DC. Don't worry. We got you,
Big D.
You guys might have to work. You guys might have to work double overtime for me.
Probably.
Gosh, DC, you're gonna be the water boy for that outstanding prison league football team.
That's good.
Just a little friendly banter here back and forth. But yeah, just that wraps up our first round mock here. So just some surprises. Zach, what did you think of the overall mock here? Who are some players that surprised you that weren't taken?
Yeah, so overall, the board kind of fell the way I thought it would. Tyler Nubin is a top 20 player for me. He was not selected. Troy Franklin wasn't selected. He's my 29th overall player. Guys like Ladd McConkey is still on the board. Keon Coleman, no linebackers taken. So overall, there's tons and tons and tons of great talent still on the board for day 2.
No doubt, for sure. So a lot of studs there, and I bet the Carolina Panthers are really, really happy with that.
Oh yeah, they're gonna get a dog for sure. Absolute dog.
Well, thank you, Kevin and Big D, for joining us today. Really appreciate you coming on our podcast and supporting us and just being friends of the show.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, we love you, boys. Thanks again for coming on. We'll definitely have to have you guys on in the future, especially after the draft. We'll see who the Vikings take, and we'd love to have you on and get your guys' feedback for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I'm down for that.
All right. Well, we'll end it. Straight cash, homie.
Just win, baby.
Thank you for listening to our episode. Be sure to give us a follow on Instagram and X at Naptime Sports Talk Podcast for content related to the pod. Thank you for the support.